They told me to sit in a corner because I didn't match their status. They had no idea who I really was. Minutes later, the manager ran to my table, bowed, and said, "Ma'am, your private suite is ready." The whole restaurant went silent. And my in-laws realized they had disrespected the wrong woman. My name is Alina and I'm 26 years old. I never expected one dinner to change the way everyone saw me, including my own in-laws. That night, we were supposed to celebrate my father-in-law's birthday at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. I had dressed simply like I always do, light makeup, a soft beige dress, and a small purse. I don't chase designer labels or flashy jewelry. Comfort is enough for me. But for my in-laws, appearance is everything. The moment we stepped inside the restaurant, I felt their eyes inspecting every part of me. My mother-in-law whispered to her sister, loud enough for me to hear, "Why does she dress like this? She doesn't match our status at all." My father-in-law gave a small, irritated shake of his head. My husband stayed quiet, pretending he didn't hear anything. We reached a table near the center of the restaurant. Beautiful lights, soft music, expensive decor. But before I could sit, my mother-in-law pointed toward a chair in the far corner. "You sit over there," she said sharply. "That corner suits you better." I paused. "Why?" I asked gently, hoping I misunderstood. She looked at me from head to toe and replied, "Because you don't match our table. Guests will think we brought a nobody." Her words burned. People turned their heads watching the scene. But I've learned to stay calm, so I quietly walked to the corner seat and sat down alone. While they ordered food for themselves, I sat with my hands folded, trying to hold my tears back. I wasn't poor. I wasn't helpless. I was simply someone who didn't like showing off. Even my husband didn't know the full truth about my life. What they didn't know was simple. I was the one paying their rent. I paid their electrical bills. I paid for my husband's car installments. I even covered my father-in-law's medical bills last winter. I never mentioned it because I believed helping family was a blessing, not a competition. But they mistook my simplicity for weakness. As I sat in the corner, a waiter walked past and gave me a confused look. Why was I separated from my own family? I just smiled slightly and looked away. My in-laws laughed loudly at their table, talking about money, business, and high society, pretending I didn't exist. Inside my chest, something shifted. I stayed silent, but deep down I knew something they didn't. This restaurant was not unfamiliar to me. And soon everyone in that room would realize who I really was. I sat quietly in the corner, trying to focus on my breathing instead of the humiliation burning inside me. People around us kept glancing my way, some confused, some judgmental, some even sympathetic. But no one said anything. Why would they? To them, I probably looked like someone who didn't belong in such a fancy place. My mother-in-law lifted her menu and said loudly, "Some people should know their level. This restaurant is not for everyone." Her voice carried across half the hall. My face heated with shame. Meanwhile, my husband looked down at his phone, pretending he wasn't related to me. That hurt more than her words. Just then, a familiar voice echoed from the other side of the hall. "Ma'am." "Excuse me, ma'am." I looked up. The restaurant's manager, a tall man in a black suit, was rushing toward me. His expression wasn't annoyed or confused. It was respectful. Almost nervous. He reached my corner first, not the main family table. He slightly bowed his head. "Ma'am, we've been waiting for you. Your private suite is ready." For a second I froze. My in-laws' laughter stopped. The entire table turned toward us. My mother-in-law's face twisted in disbelief. "Private suite? For her?" she snapped. The manager didn't even look at her. Instead, he spoke directly to me. "We prepared your usual setup. I apologize for the delay. Please come with me." The restaurant became silent. My hands trembled a little as I stood up. All those stares that once felt heavy, now felt different. My father-in-law blinked rapidly. "What is he talking about? What suite?" The manager finally turned to them and said politely, "Ma'am, sir, she is one of our VIP clients." My mother-in-law scoffed. He, impossible. She can't afford even the soup here." The manager smiled professionally. "Actually, she can. She holds a permanent VIP membership, and is also one of the silent investors of this restaurant." The room went still. My in-laws looked like someone had poured ice water over their heads. My husband's jaw dropped as if he'd heard the biggest shock of his life. Me. I simply adjusted my purse strap and said calmly, "Shall we?" The manager nodded and guided me away from the corner, away from humiliation, toward the exclusive elevator that led to the private dining suites upstairs. But the moment we stepped inside, he whispered something that made my heart race even more. "Ma'am, should I inform your business partner that you've arrived?" I looked over my shoulder at my in-laws' stunned faces. A quiet, calm smile formed on my lips. "Yes," I said. "Tell her I'm here." They had no idea what was coming next. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and warm golden lights welcomed us into the private floor. Everything here felt different. Quieter, richer, more elegant. Soft music played in the background, and the air smelled like fresh orchids. As we walked toward the suite, the manager said politely, "Ma'am, your usual staff is already inside. They prepared the menu you prefer." I nodded, though inside my heart was beating fast. Downstairs, my in-laws were still frozen in shock. And honestly, they hadn't seen anything yet. When the manager opened the door, the suite glowed with soft lighting. A long table was set with crystal glasses, fresh flowers, and delicate dishes. The walls were decorated with modern art I recognized, because I suggested some of them myself during last year's renovation. 3 staff members stood straight, hands folded. "Welcome back, ma'am," they said together. I thanked them and took my seat at the center of the table. For the first time since the evening began, I breathed freely. A moment later, the door gently opened. My business partner, Sophia, the actual owner and the face of the restaurant brand, walked in. Tall, confident, in a chic black blazer. She smiled the moment she saw me. "There you are," she said warmly. "I didn't know you were coming tonight. If I knew, I would have greeted you downstairs." We hugged lightly. "You know how last-minute plans with in-laws can be," I joked softly. Sophia rolled her eyes and laughed. "Always messy. Sit. Tell me everything." Before I could answer, there was a sudden commotion at the door. My mother-in-law had barged in. "What is going on here?" she barked. "Who is all this for? And what do you mean she's an investor?" Sophia turned slowly, her smile fading into a sharp, professional expression. "I'm sorry," she said firmly. "This floor is for VIP clients only. This is a restricted area." My mother-in-law crossed her arms. "I don't care. This girl is my daughter-in-law. She has no money." Sophia cut her off calmly. "Ma'am, she helped keep this restaurant alive. She invested when others backed out. She saved our staff's salaries during a crisis. She owns a percentage of this place. So yes, she belongs here." My mother-in-law's face turned red, not from anger this time but shame. He stuttered. "W didn't know. She never told us." Sophia replied sharply, "Respect should not depend on what you know." For the first time ever, someone had defended me in front of her. And my mother-in-law had no answer. My father-in-law stood behind her, speechless. My husband was there too, eyes lowered as if trying to disappear. The silence inside the suite was heavy, almost cracking. Then Sophia looked at me and asked loudly, "Should I have security escort them downstairs?" I looked at my in-laws, the people who made me sit in a corner. A tiny part of me wanted revenge, but a bigger part wanted dignity. So I took a calm breath and said, "No. Let them stay. Let them see how people treat me when they're not around." My mother-in-law swallowed hard. Because now, everything was different. My in-laws slowly stepped inside the suite, their confidence drained, their eyes darting around the room like they had entered another world. The same people who couldn't sit beside me downstairs now hesitated to even breathe too loudly here. Sophia waved at the staff. "Please serve dinner." Within seconds, 2 servers rolled in elegant carts filled with dishes I had personally selected months ago for the VIP menu. Truffle pasta, herb-roasted chicken, Parmesan souffle, and handmade desserts. My mother-in-law blinked rapidly. This is the food she eats?" she whispered to my father-in-law. One of the servers began arranging plates. "For ma'am," he said, placing a beautifully crafted dish in front of me. Then he placed simple standard plates in front of my in-laws with polite formality. Nothing rude, just different. It stung them more than any insult. My father-in-law cleared his throat awkwardly. "So, you own part of this place?" I looked at him calmly. "Yes. For the past 2 years." He swallowed. And you didn't tell us? I tried to tell you who I was, I said softly. But you decided who I was before I even spoke. They went silent. My husband finally took a step forward. Alina, why didn't you at least tell me? I looked straight at him. When did you last ask about my life? My work? My goals? You were too busy trying to keep your parents happy. He lowered his head slowly. My mother-in-law tried to recover her pride. Well, fine. But you still didn't need this private room. We're all family. We could have just sat together. I raised an eyebrow. Downstairs, you told me to sit in a corner because I didn't match your status. So tell me, do I match it now? She froze. Everyone in the room looked at her. Her mouth opened then closed. No answer. Sophia, watching the scene, finally spoke. Alina, last year when this place struggled, you invested without hesitation. You didn't do it for attention. You did it because that's who you are. She turned to my mother-in-law and added, and if you think that makes her less, then I don't know what to tell you. My mother-in-law's face turned even redder. Just then one of the servers came to my side and whispered, Ma'am, there's something you should know. Everyone looked up. There was a note downstairs, he said quietly. Your in-laws asked one of our waiters earlier if they could speak to you privately tonight. They said they needed money, urgently. My eyes shifted sharply to my in-laws. So this was the real reason they invited me to dinner? Not love. Not family. Not celebration. Money. My father-in-law tried to speak. Alina, that's not. But I held up my hand. No. Let's be honest tonight. You didn't want me here unless I was useful. They looked at the floor. The truth sat between us, heavy and undeniable. I leaned back in my chair. You insulted me publicly, for the same person you were planning to beg money from later. Not a single one of them had anything to say. Even my husband didn't defend them this time. For the first time ever, the silence was in my favor. And I realized something powerful. Respect isn't about wealth. It's about how people treat you when they think you have nothing. That night, my in-laws learned exactly who the nobody at their table really was. The suite grew quiet. The kind of silence where everyone realizes the truth has already been exposed. My in-laws avoided eye contact, staring at their plates as if the food could save them from the embarrassment. I took a slow sip of water, letting the moment breathe. Then gently, calmly I asked, so, this dinner, was it really about celebrating a birthday? Or was it about asking me for money? My mother-in-law opened her mouth, then closed it. My father-in-law wiped invisible sweat from his forehead. My husband looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. Finally, my father-in-law whispered, We needed help. A business loan went wrong. We didn't want to tell you like this. Yet you had no problem insulting me in front of everyone, I said simply. They winced. Before anyone could say another word, the door opened and the manager walked in politely with a leather folder in his hand. Ma'am, he said, addressing me directly, the bill for the main dining area is ready. My mother-in-law reached toward him quickly. Oh no, she'll pay. She always pays. This time the manager didn't even blink. He turned back to me. Should I add their charges to your account, ma'am? I looked at my in-laws who were now suddenly acting soft, almost sweet, like the insults downstairs never happened. My mother-in-law forced a smile. We're family, right? You don't mind paying for us? You always do. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, and said the words they never expected. No. Put the entire bill on their account. My mother-in-law's smile vanished. What? She whispered, horrified. The manager nodded professionally. As you wish, ma'am. My father-in-law swallowed hard. Alina, the bill downstairs is huge. I know, I said. And so is my respect. But you didn't value that either. My husband finally spoke, voice shaky. Alina, please, they're my parents. I shook my head. They're adults. They made choices. Now they can face the consequences. The manager bowed and left to finalize the bill. My mother-in-law snapped. You're doing this because you're angry. No, I replied calmly. I'm doing this because you need to learn that disrespect has a cost. And tonight, you get the bill. Just then a subtle knock sounded at the door. The manager returned with another update. Ma'am, your car is ready at the private entrance. The driver said he will wait as long as you need. My in-laws blinked again, more shocked than ever. Pie car? My husband asked. The manager shook his head. No, sir. Her car. The one registered under her investor profile. My husband realized, maybe for the first time in our marriage, that he had no idea who his wife really was. I stood up, lifted my purse and said, "You told me to sit in a corner because I didn't match your status. But the truth is, it was never me who didn't belong. It was your behavior. No shouting. No revenge. Just clarity." As I walked out of the suite, the staff bowed respectfully. Behind me, my in-laws sat frozen, waiting to pay the bill they tried to dump on me. And my husband. He followed me quietly, steps heavy with guilt and realization. For the first time in a long time, I walked out with my head high. And they were left behind exactly where they tried to put me. In the corner. The hallway outside the private suite felt warm and quiet, almost peaceful. My heels tapped softly against the floor as I walked toward the private elevator. Behind me, I heard hurried footsteps. It was my husband. "Alina, wait," he said, his voice low and nervous. I paused but didn't turn around. He stepped beside me and spoke softly, almost trembling. I didn't know you were doing all this. Paying the bills, helping my parents, investing. Why didn't you tell me?" I finally looked at him. "Because you never asked," I said honestly. "Every time your parents insulted me, you stayed silent. Every time they questioned my worth, you looked away. You made it clear that their comfort mattered more than my dignity." He looked down at his shoes, ashamed. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I should have stood up for you tonight. I'm sorry." I nodded. It was the first real apology I had ever heard from him. But before I could respond, the elevator doors opened, and standing inside was Sophia. "Oh, perfect timing," she said with a warm smile. "I was just coming to say goodbye and discuss something important." My husband stepped aside awkwardly. Sophia walked out and handed me a sleek black folder. "I've been meaning to talk to you," she said. "The board wants to expand. We're opening a new luxury branch downtown and we want you to be a major partner. Not just a silent investor anymore." My eyes widened. "Oh, a major partner?" "Yes," she said proudly. "You've proven your vision, your loyalty, and your business sense. We want your name on the next branch." My husband's mouth literally fell open. Me? A restaurant partner? Public one? It felt unreal. But Sophia wasn't finished. "And Alina," she added with a smile. "I heard what happened downstairs. If anyone deserves recognition, respect, and a fresh start, it's you." For a moment, emotion tightened my chest. Not sadness, not anger, but relief. Real deep relief. I thanked her sincerely and she left us with a quick hug. As the elevator doors closed behind her, my husband spoke again. "Alina, I don't want to lose you." I took a slow breath. "You won't lose me," I said. "But I won't lose myself again either." He nodded, understanding more in that moment than he had in years. We walked toward the private exit together, but when the doors slid open, something unexpected happened. Downstairs, near the entrance, we saw my in-laws arguing with the manager. The bill was massive. The staff stood firm. But something else caught my eye. People were staring at them, not me. Their whispered humiliation was loud. My mother-in-law noticed me and froze. Her voice softened suddenly. "Alina, please, say something. Help us." I looked at her calmly. "I did help you once," I said. "Many times. But you never valued it." She opened her mouth, desperate. "We didn't know who you were." I stopped her gently. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. You just needed a heart." And with that, I turned and walked toward my waiting car. My husband followed me silently, holding the door open as I stepped inside. As the car moved forward, I looked back one final time. My in-laws stood there, small and helpless, not because of money, because of their own actions. And for the first time ever, I felt completely free. That night, I didn't just leave the restaurant with dignity. I left with my power, my voice, and a future that finally felt like mine. And the people who once told me to sit in a corner? They were left paying the price, literally and emotionally, for the lesson they never thought they'd learn.